Well, hello, friends, and welcome once again to another edition of the 360 Experience podcast. I'm your host, Tim Braheem, and today I'm really excited to bring in a terrific loan originator, Becky Staples. Now, Becky was introduced to me by a dear friend of mine who is a faculty member of the Loan Atlas, Trevor Carlson, who, if you know Trevor, you know that anybody that he speaks highly of is good as gold. He's a very, very high integrity man. And he said, Tim, you need to meet Becky, and I'm so glad that he did make this introduction. Becky has been a loan originator for 20 years, and she is just coming off of a terrific year in 2025, where she funded over 200 loans and over $80 million in production. And we're going to spend some time today talking about a few different subjects. The first that we're going to talk about is how she built her team and how it has had a massive impact on her business growth and how it has had a significant impact on the balance in her personal life. And for so many of you as originators right now, maybe you've never had a team, or maybe you've scaled your team back significantly with the last couple of years being a little bit more challenging. And the thought of maybe adding some human resource support might be in the forefront of your mind, which is why I want to dive into this topic with Becky in great depth. We also are talking with her about her database management strategy, how she stays in touch with her past clients, and her gifting program that she sends to her past clients, and how she reinvests her success into her success long term with this gifting program. Now, before we go to my conversation with Becky Staples, I'd like to first say thank you if you're a subscriber to the show. And if you're not, I'd be greatly appreciative if you do subscribe in whatever medium that you are viewing it on, whether it be YouTube or Spotify or Apple or et cetera. If you like the show, or if you find it to be valuable to somebody who maybe you know, please give us a like and or forward it on to somebody else that could benefit. That's the whole purpose of this show, is to educate and to help people. I'd like to also thank our sponsor, the Loan Atlas, for sponsoring the show. If you haven't checked out the Loan Atlas, especially with its new AI business planning tool, I highly recommend that you do. We're very close to 900 members now in the Loan Atlas, so it's growing very rapidly, and people are getting tremendous benefit from it. And without further ado, my friends, my conversation with Becky Staples in the 360 Experience. Hi, Becky. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Tim?
I'm great. It's nice to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be on my show. I'm grateful, and I know that the listeners are going to benefit a tremendous amount. I think very highly of Trevor Carlson. He's a friend of mine, and he introduced us to each other, and now you're on the Loan Atlas faculty, which is quite an honor for us to have you. And I want to start just because we're just getting to know each other here a little bit. It's kind of helpful for me to understand just a little bit about your background, how long you've been in the business for, what title and role do you currently play, and give us an idea of like what your 2025 production numbers were.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say very excited to be here. It does feel a little surreal to be on here. My first introduction to you was hearing you speak on the stage at Mastermind, which I really loved and was drawn to the way you teach and coach and focus on mindset. So that being said, thank you so much for having me. This August will be 20 years that I've been doing this. So I started this when I was 22 years old, and it's been quite a roller coaster ride throughout. At this point in the game, I am running my own team. I have 4 or 5 team members, depending on who you're counting as actual team members. Some people I share with others, like a processor. And our numbers last year were somewhere around 86 million. We did about 22 odd loans, somewhere in that. I'd have to look at my exact numbers, but that's been pretty consistent where we've been since the big boom of 2020 and 2021.
Gosh, congratulations. I'm tempted to ask you about what you did in 2020 and 2021, yes. only because those are some really terrific numbers for 2025. I mean, averaging almost 20 loans a month in closed loan production is really outstanding. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You you started us off by mentioning your team, and I think that's a good place for us to start. And the reason that I want to start there is because there are a lot of originators right now that I'm finding starting to feel like they're stretched a little bit thin. I mean, everybody stripped themselves down to the bare bones minimum in 23 and 24. 25, the second half of the year was quite a bit better with a couple of little rate reductions that resulted in there being some refi opportunities. And I think that's where people started to feel like they were getting stretched. And the topic of building a team is one that I think is front and center right now for a lot of people. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's first start by you walking everybody through the makeup of your team. You mentioned that you share a processor, and I want to talk about that as well. But maybe you can define each role, and then most specifically, what lane do you try to stay in that ultimately butters your bread at the end of the day?
Yes, these are all excellent questions. Team, I would say, has been the thing that to kind of backtrack, I think it'll help people to see how I added team members. Because right now I do have quite a few more than where I started with. So my very first hire in 2013 was an assistant. I went to a Todd Duncan I can't remember a boot camp at that time it was called, and it's called something else now, but he basically said you need an assistant. So I hired an assistant. She has actually been with me since 2013. So that's almost 13 years now. In fact, actually, I think last month it was 13 years. She has now grown into my production partner. And so assistant, I hired her out of college. She knew nothing about loans. And I took the time to she did everything for me. She was a personal assistant. She watched my baby at times when my baby was in the office with me. I would say if you're if you're all on your own and you're like, hey, I'm ready to hire the next person, it would be starting with just a straight up assistant that you set the precedent of you're going to do anything that I can't do. And I'm going to ask you to be proactive. I'm going to ask you to do things that you've never done before and probably put you in situations where you're like, I don't know. At the time when I hired it was Google it, but now it's more like an AI chat GPT it, right? Which is super helpful. What I loved about her and why she's grown with me is because she has been open to growing. So finding the right team member to get there, I think, is super important. It's difficult to do, but there are a lot of really good tools you can use to find those team members, one being the DISC profile. I didn't do that on her. I think I just lucked out. So starting with an assistant, and then really I talked my husband into coming in and marketing for me, which has been an interesting evolution that not a lot of people do and don't do. He and I ran the team for several years. And over the last 2-3 years, he's actually faded off, which has changed what I do on my team. So he worked with me very strongly, and we still work together in some capacity for, 10, 12 years. So I wasn't excellent at marketing. He was excellent at marketing. And I saw what his strengths were and what my weaknesses were, and what my strengths were: excellent at doing the perfect loan process, like you say in Loan Atlas, and structuring deals and talking and speaking very high level about self-employed income and any of the difficult things there. So for a lot of years, we were kind of structured where he was the marketer of what a normal loan officer does, and I was kind of like his production partner, but on a higher level where I just took more leadership role. I would say the next big step that helped our team move from really doing well and honestly took a ton off my plate was what we call a client concierge. Ultimately, he's my lead person. When I get a lead, he's the one who enters it into our CRM. He's the one who sets it up in my calendar. He's the one who preps them, lets them know what to expect. It's kind of like the whole nurse-doctor situation where he's preparing them, he's getting them all ready to go, and then I meet with them and do a consult with them, ultimately try to get them pre-approved in that meeting when I'm meeting with them. The team has evolved since we've hired him. We hired him in 2019, just before the 2020 boom. And boy, am I grateful for that. That was something that we hired him and at the behest of a coach. I was being coached at the time, and she told us, hey, it sounds like you guys are just running yourselves thin, trying to follow up on leads, trying to do all these things. We really dialed in our CRM at that point in time, and we hired Caleb, who's been with me since that time. So hired him, and he's just really grown with the team and has gotten to where he's very great at speaking with new clients and setting them up to where they're really prepped to meet with me and or at this point, my production partner, Aubrey. So she and I function very similarly. Over the last year, I've been stepping more into the marketing role where I'm doing less and less and putting more and more on her as a production partner of what I used to do. So I kind of talked a lot there. What
let me
clarify on?
synthesize. No, that's perfect. And you didn't bring up processor.
Sorry.
So
I can
that's
go
okay.
there.
So your processor is somebody that you share with other originators. Is that correct?
Just one other originator. During the 2020 and 2021, I actually consumed 2 processors on my own. And now I've gotten down to where I actually have one and like a backup processor. Because if my primary processor is full, I'll go to my overflow processor. But I've worked with both of them for so many years. They know my process. They know what I expect of them. And they're just really integral to the team. I really, they're definitely part of the team. And I guess the part of the team that I just explained is more of a lead to contract. Whereas once it goes to the processor, I really rely on them to take the communication on, where I'll do certain touch points with the borrower after that. But my processor really takes that on and takes it all the way to closing.
Okay, so what I want to do is I want to repeat back everything I heard. I want to add a few bells and whistles to it. I think it's going to be super helpful for the listener to really have that broken down again. So your initial hire was a personal assistant. And one of the things that I love that you said was that you brought somebody aboard and established an agreement with that person very early, which is you're going to take all the stuff off my plate that is the low payoff activities. You didn't say it that way, but that's a really important footnote. I teach a master class within my Leadership 360 program on hiring and managing an effective personal assistant, which is something that I have a ton of experience with, and I think I've done a really good job with over the course of the last couple of decades or so. And wow, like a personal assistant that is willing to roll their sleeves up and do all of the, I hate to use the word grunt work, but we'll call it that for a moment, can be so incredibly valuable to freeing up a loan originator to do what they are meant to be doing, which is working on money paying activities, talking to people who need to borrow money and people that can refer them to people who need to borrow money. And we can dive maybe into this in just a moment, but like I'm curious as to like just a snapshot of maybe 5-6 things that your personal assistant does, just to give everybody a little bit of a flavor for like what can a personal assistant really do for me on both a business and personal level to really free up my time. Then you brought your husband aboard. He handled the marketing. I think that it's very noteworthy for everyone to consider that sometimes, not for everybody, but for some people, I'm one of those people, it's somewhat difficult for me to market myself. Like even in today's day and age with, the Loan Atlas and my coaching company and all that, I really don't enjoy, feels a bit voyeuristic sometimes for me to be out there like pimping myself. And it can be much more effective to have somebody that's doing that on your behalf. So you don't have to run up against any insecurities and things like that. And it sounds like maybe that worked out that way for you with having your husband do that. So his job was to make it rain. Your job was to, put out rain buckets, so to speak, and collect water and get loans in. But then in 2019, you brought aboard the person that is your nurse, if you will, in the doctor-nurse formula, your concierge. And what I want to make mention of here that I've seen so many times, I wouldn't profess that I did this exactly this way myself, but I've seen it done so effectively by others, and it sounds like for you as well, Becky, is that if you have somebody that can do the initial intake, that can have that initial dialogue with the client, that could vet them to find out, is this person even real? Maybe run their credit report, and assess their circumstances and do an effective job of that. That can really free someone such as yourself up to only be talking to people who are ready, and that person can pre-sell you. So an example would be Caleb LeGrand, who's one of the great loan originators that I know. He's on the Loan Atlas faculty. He's been a client of mine for over a decade. He does this very, very effectively, and proper scripting for that concierge to speak highly of you, to create intrigue, to have that person have a vested interest in working or at least meeting with you, to give you an opportunity to consult and to educate, can be incredibly effective in that position versus you take the initial intake call and you're having to sell yourself. This is a circumstance where somebody else can be saying things like, well, if you have, if we, go through this process and determine that's appropriate for you to meet with Becky, I think that you're going to find her to be a tremendous educator. That person can say things about you that might be a little bit difficult or uncomfortable for you to say. And in closing, it creates quite an impression for the consumer that you're a very successful individual if you have a concierge who is working for you versus anybody else that they may be talking to who doesn't have one. It creates at least the impression of success. Finally, you brought aboard, as I understand it, somebody who kind of morphed into your role as being the production partner. And that production partner is somebody who does the consult, where you're now starting to be more of the biz dev and rainmaker on the team. So you've kind of shifted into your husband's former position. And then you have somebody else who is now doing those consults, getting the total cost analysis or whatever you're using to present loan options to the client, et cetera. And then finally, you have a processor that you share with one other loan originator, although in past years when volume was very high, you had that processor all to yourself and even an overflow processor as well. Is that an accurate synopsis of everything?
Yes. And as you say that, I realize I actually have two more team members I should probably mention.
Sure. Go for it.
As I'm taking notes, like hearing myself. I also have a loan officer assistant who, in all reality, she's kind of like the team assistant. And to my clients, I call her my closing coordinator. So she's like my post-close person. So the second the CD goes out to my clients, she's the one calling them and reviewing it and making sure. And then I have a very specific set of questions that I want her to ask at the end of the loan process. One of them in particular being getting a Google review or a Zillow review. And then also we send a gift out at every closing. So there's just a few things she's going through with them, as well as just going through the logistics. That's the time when the client's very like, okay, what next? What am I doing? She's also doing a 30-day call out at the end, 30 days after, making sure they know where to make their payment. And then she's in charge of, we have a 3 to 5 year gift program set up that we do have like a shipping person who ships those gifts out for us. So
outstanding. You're describing your version of the perfect loan process, whether people that are listening realize it or not. I mean, it's a conveyor belt of baton passes that take place from one person to the next who specialize in certain aspects of the experience. And at the end of the experience, which doesn't really ever end, as we both know, 3 to 5 years out,
right,
you've locked down a long-term relationship. And I want to get into database management here in a little bit, because I know that's something that you're passionate about. But one of the things that I am aware of is here's an idea for you, something that I don't remember who shared this idea, but I thought it was brilliant. I talked to some of the people that sometimes I can tend to forget. But if you have your post-closing person whose job starts at the point of CD and goes to collecting that Google review, an idea would be to have that person also ask that consumer to do a Google review for the referral partner. So, one of the things, like the scripting, Becky, may sound something along the lines of, how did you enjoy working with our team, et cetera? You get the person to divulge anything that maybe didn't go right, so you can make sure that you can rectify those things going forward. You ask for the review, and then at the same time you say, and one other thing that I'd like to ask you is, how is it working with Terry Morler, a fictitious avatar real estate agent? And they say, oh, it was wonderful. Well, one of the things that we know about Terry is that She's not someone who has a very big ego. She's not someone who typically likes to ask for things from clients. But what I do know is it would be incredibly valuable to her to have a Google review from you as well. If you wouldn't mind, I'm going to send you an email right now with a link to her Google review page. Would you mind filling that out and giving her a review? And this is a way for you to really solidify the relationship with that real estate partner by assisting them in getting reviews themselves. So just an idea. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I love it. I'm surprised I haven't thought of it myself, honestly, because I'm
Yeah,
always telling my realtor partners, hey, Google reviews are huge. You need to get them. But I could 100% help. And that's an excellent idea.
most loan originators, the reality of it is don't have the wherewithal to be able to do all of the things that you're able to do because they don't have the resources, the human resources that are required. So let's talk about human resources for a minute. So I'd imagine that there are some people that are listening that are saying like, wow, and I'm glad you started with 2013, I believe was the year, because it's an evolution, right? I mean, it's not like you wake up one day and you have a 5-person team and you add pieces along the way. But for a lot of originators, they buy into a story, and I'm looking for feedback and a comment from you as it relates to this. They buy into a story, and perhaps you bought into this story at some point in time earlier in your career, where the narrative is something along the lines of like, well, there's these things that I have to do. Like if I don't do them, if I don't take that initial intake call, I might not ever get to talk to the person. Or if I don't review the CD with the person, then they might feel like that I'm passing them off. Or if I don't do the post-closing call to the person, then they may feel like I'm not really that interested in talking to them anymore. And I think that these are narratives that are fiction. I mean, I came to a conclusion many, many years ago when I was an originator that it didn't really matter who they liked on my team, whether it be me or somebody else. It just mattered that they liked someone, that there was a relationship with someone that was memorable and that they felt good about, and that they were going to come back and they were going to refer their friends and family members to us. And that doesn't always have to be you as the originator that is the jack of all trades and does every single one of these steps. Was there a time in your career where you felt like you needed to do all of that? And if so, what did you do to kind of loosen the purse strings and let go and trust a little bit more in others being able to perform certain tasks for you?
That is the ever-present question and thing that I deal with, and probably a lot of loan originators that are out there. I have to do it. I'm the star. I'm the reason they're here. But you're very right. We look for team members and we hire team members that match our same energy, match the smiling while you're on the phone, the excitedness. Like I tell my team all the time, this is their first time doing it potentially, or this is their only time in the last 5 years. Like make this special for them. So having me, like I'm constantly coaching my team with my philosophies. And as I added my assistant to start off with and taught her little things to do, it's hard to let go. It's really hard to let go because they were referred to me. The realtor wants them to talk to me. I even talked to realtors who have said, oh, I only refer to this loan originator because they do everything. But then you look at that loan originator and their production and their life isn't that great. And for me to so I find people that are going to refer me that understand that I'm not going to do it all, and yet their client is going to have an excellent experience. The way I was able to slowly start letting go was with the help of a coach urging me, like, you got to let some things go. And the thing that always comes to mind is if they do it 80% as good as you would have done it, you didn't have to do it. So that's 100% great, right? And yet the client still had a great experience and they don't realize that it could have been slightly better because you've scripted it enough, you've trained them enough, and it's a process. So like even with the transition that I'm in right now, where I'm moving more into a role of marketing and less in the role of talking every day, like some of the loans I'm more involved in and some I'm less involved in. And a lot of times what it is me listening to my production partner speak and talk and giving her feedback of saying, next time, make sure you're approaching it this way. And there are 100% times we lose the deal because I let her try and there wasn't a connection or she didn't do it this way. And it could have been me that lost it too. Like we never know exactly why we lost it, but then we learn from it. And you have to be okay with taking some of those fails to learn from it and get better. And I literally couldn't go on vacation back in, even when I just had a personal assistant, I could not go on vacation without a laptop. And it was a very common occurrence for my family to be out at the pool or at the ocean and me to be in the beach house taking a loan application because I had no system in place. And I quickly realized that wasn't the life I wanted to create, to the point over the last few years, it's been really fun for me to be like, I'm not bringing my laptop. I'll see you later. I'm forwarding my phone to the office. And it's really nice to just know that my team has it.
You know, that you said a lot of things there that I want to comment on. So I get the first thing that I actually want to ask you, because I think it's so important, is how did you get your realtors to accept that you were not going to be the person that did everything and that they were working with you and your team rather than just you? Because that is a transition that originators need to make. So how did you overcome that?
So I've always had at least one assistant, at least when I've really been going after realtors and trying to create relationships with realtors. A lot of times I will bring my assistant or the person that's going to be talking to their clients to one of the lunches that I have with them. So they get to build a relationship with this person. They get to know how we work together and they understand more. Because I bring that person with me, it's an excuse to talk about who this person is and what they do for me on the team and how I place so his name is Caleb. I place him almost as if he could be their assistant too. What I love, and I explain what I love about Caleb is you're going to give me a lead, and whether that lead is ready to buy now or ready to buy in a year, it's in our CRM and that lead is going to be returned to you. And he's going to be the one doing all the work following up on it, which is so great, right?
Well, and it's so important what you just said. And I want to make sure that everybody understands and hears this clearly. Number one, it is your job to edify your team members. You can sell them better than they can sell themselves. So if you put yourself, I always try to look at things through the lens of compassion. So if I'm compassionately looking at it from the realtor's perspective, why would they want you to relinquish control when you are the person that they trust, unless the person that you're relinquishing control to is somebody that they also trust? So it is your job to build the trust between your referral partners and your team members. And that is brilliantly done in the way that you are bringing this person to the lunch. You're explaining to that referral partner what this person's role is. I used to do this in the form of an annual breakfast with all my referral partners and my team members. And I would have my team members sit at separate tables with the different realtors, accountants, financial advisors, and get to know them. Because once they see this is a real human being that has some intellect and that actually has a role that they play, and then I would stand up in front of the room and I would introduce each team member and I would brag on them. I would tell about why I'm so lucky to have them on my team and what they do exceptionally well. This is a key part of you getting acceptance from your referral partners to work with someone other than you, which equates to freedom. So let's go to the subject matter of freedom for a minute. You described a situation where you no longer are at the cabana while the family is swimming in the pool, taking loan applications, and you have freedom and balance in your life. You beautifully described that you were willing to take a risk. And that risk is, I might lose some deals that I would have gotten, but you're looking at a much bigger picture. And the bigger picture is the next decade. And what is the balance that I want to have in my life? And how do I want to scale this business? Because the reality of it is you're going to have a glass ceiling on your business when you're tethered to your computer. Yeah, you'll work 70 hours a week and you do 12 loans a month. But you're also capable of doing 25 loans a month if you have a terrific team of people around you who you've hired correctly and you've edified and you have trained properly, which you described a situation that I call shadowing. So you're shadowing that production partner. You're reviewing their presentation to the client. You're giving them course corrective feedback. This can be done in the form of them recording their Zoom sessions, and then you watch them on 125 speed and take notes and give them feedback. That's how they're going to improve and get better. But make no mistake about it, to everyone who's listening, freedom and scaling your job will only go as far as the strength of the team of the people that you have built around you. So the next question on this topic is hiring. So it sounds like you've made some great hires. You referenced not having disked back in 2013 and gotten lucky. I presume that because you brought that up, you now do use a DISC assessment or some other type of personality assessment. What are some things that you look for and are a part of your process of hiring to ensure that you make the right hire?
Yeah, hiring is one of the, I would say, it's the toughest thing because you never know. Someone may be an excellent interviewer. The DISC profile helps me a lot depending on what I've been doing in the past few hires is looking at what I'm hiring for. And then I look at my team members' DISC profile that's most similar to what I'm hiring for and go, okay, I'm going to want someone to be looking like this. So when I get their DISC review and I'm comparing to them, that I compare them to my other team members, because I feel like that's the biggest way for me to know, like, okay, this person's personality is a high D or whatever it is. Then I can kind of gauge on how I would assume they would react. I do also set really proper expectations in the interview that I have a very high ownership mentality in the sense of we're not victims. We don't say, I don't know how. If we mess up, we're going to mess up. And we like that's one of the things that I set a huge precedent for of like, if I messed up, I'm going to tell you why I messed up and I'm going to tell you how I'm going to solve it so it doesn't happen next time. My team has probably heard me say that 100 times. Like, great, we made a mistake. What are you doing to fix it and move on? Sorry, I'm digressing there, but that's something.
No, you're not. You're actually not. This is this is important because what you're doing is you're establishing and forming agreements day one, rather than operating off of expectations, which create frustration. So you're laying down a standard set of agreements as to how we're going to perform. We're going to learn from our mistakes. We're going to be brave enough to take risk so long as we learn from them, and we're going to be resourceful. Like we're going to figure it out, which is basically how you did it, Becky. I would imagine. I mean, you didn't, so have somebody holding your hand every day. You had to figure it out.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So that's one of the biggest things we use. I mean, the DISC profile doesn't give me everything, but it gives me a good idea of who they are and how they like to be rewarded, what their love language is. Like we have the conversation about love language and what they respond best to, because that helps me then know how they like to be bonused, whether it's me making sure I'm verbally telling them what a good job they're doing or giving them a gift or doing an act of service for them. So like I just really try to get to know them from that level in the interview. And a lot of it is intuition too. You get a gut feeling about someone and you say, okay, this is someone that we're going to take a chance on. And you really know in the first 90 days because a lot of feedback is given in those first 90 days. And how they handle the feedback is a big deal. You can tell if they're a victim mentality or one who takes ownership and says, yeah, I messed up, but I did this, this, and this, so that's not going to happen again, and I got you.
Yeah, so the DISC assessment is something that I've been using for 30 years. That's because I'm old.
Hey, I've been doing this for 20, so the fact that I can say that is crazy.
and it's incredibly powerful. And for those that are listening that don't know what DISC is, it's an incredible tool. It has tremendous layers to it. There's more and more that you can learn from it. We do, I think, a really terrific job in the Loan Atlas of educating our members on how to use DISC assessment, not just for the purposes of hiring, but for the purposes of team cohesion, right? Like really understanding each of your team members and what makes them tick. So you can give them what it is that they need so they can be motivated and inspired to do the best job possible. Another component of DISC is the values assessment, which comes along with that if you do an expanded DISC profile. And the values assessment can be incredibly valuable because it can tell you if this person is altruistic, if they're theoretical, if they're money motivated. All of these things can lead to, as you point out, how you want to bonus them, how you want to inspire and motivate them. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, what I want to talk with you about is database management, because I know that that's something that you're really passionate about. And we'll be right back after we hear from our sponsors. Today's episode of the 360 Experience is sponsored by the Loan Atlas. The Loan Atlas is a virtual online coaching company backed by the finest and most giving faculty that this industry has ever assembled. People like Josh Metal, Tyler Osby, Caleb LeGrand, myself, and Becky Staples, who you're listening to a conversation with in today's show. The Loan Atlas is here to support you. We are closing in on 900 loan originators that are members of our online coaching program. It is backed by our new AI-empowered business and life planning tool. If you haven't seen that, it's unbelievable. And version 2 is going to be coming out here in the next few weeks, which we're working on behind the scenes feverishly. Check out the Loan Atlas in the show link below. Additionally, I want to mention that the only personal coaching that I do is for those that are in my Leadership 360 coaching program. And every year, the Leadership 360 Signature Coaching Program, which is a 1-year program that includes a 8-day business and life planning retreat in Costa Rica and a 5-day integration retreat in Northern California. Every year, we only take 12 new clients, and we start interviewing in January. So we're in the depths of the interview process right now, and we are accepting applications to fill the next group. If you'd like to be coached by me, my colleagues, Scott Bertone and Julie Wykes, and you'd like to be a part of a cohort that is a very intimate family that works closely together over 12 months, including 2 highly impactful transformational retreats, check out the link in the show notes below, click on the application, fill it out, and we'll set up an interview for you to begin the process of mutually exploring whether or not it's a good fit. And with that said, folks, back to the show. Okay, so databasing. It's a passion of mine as well. It's actually where I made most of my money as an originator. I had some outstanding referral partners, but not a lot of them. I had 12, 13 at my peak, doing 60 loans a month. Well over 50% of my business came from my database. I've said this more times than I could ever possibly count, that is your outside sales force. That's why the perfect loan process, as we talked about before, is so important, because you get one shot to create a lasting impression. If you do a spectacular job for somebody, you're going to be remembered. They're going to want to come back. They're going to want to refer their friends and family members to you. But then it's incumbent upon you to nurture and deepen the relationships that you have, which is, in my mind, the essence of database management, which is the nurturing of those relationships, staying top of mind. So what database platform do you use? What are some of your philosophies on CRM/database management, including like how frequently do you stay in touch with your clients? What do you send to them, et cetera?
Yeah. We use a company called Rise Marketing. They've built a CRM that is specific to loan officers that's very customizable. It has a lot of preset things that over the last, I think I've been using it for 5 years, maybe 6 years. I've really made it my own overall. But anytime me or one of my team members talks to a borrower or a lead, we have to put notes in the CRM and make sure there's a task for a next step. I assign all my tasks to my client concierge, to Caleb. And so, because I'm not in my tasks in my CRM, I live in my calendar, time blocking wise. So it's his job to look at tasks every day and make sure they get set in my calendar. So for instance, I talked to a lead that says they're this morning, she was going to buy a house, but then she's decided she wants to wait until she gets married. She's getting married May 20th. And so I have the notes in their file saying why she's not buying now and when to follow up with her. So there's notes in there, and then there's a task on when to follow up, and Caleb's responsibility is to follow up, whether it's him following up and texting her through the CRM as me. Sometimes he texts as me and sometimes he texts as himself. and it's just kind of this interchangeable text thing we do. We also have what we call opportunities that the client will always be in some form of opportunity, whether they're pre-approved and waiting to find a home, whether they're ready in 3 months, ready in 6 months, 12 months. We used to have a credit opportunity, but now we just put those notes in the file. And then each of those opportunities has a pre-built text and email contact depending on and that we reevaluate probably annually to see, okay, are we texting them too much? Are we emailing them too much? What's the most effective? I've found that text is the most effective for reaching people. But we also send just the standard holiday emails. And at one point I thought of getting rid of the holiday emails because it felt like this fluff thing, because I personally don't like getting holiday emails. But it surprises me how often people reply, grateful that I reached out, grateful that I wished them a happy 4th of July or a happy Thanksgiving. And they'll ask me, how's the market, or what's going on with this, or I heard this in the news. And then I can respond, or client or Caleb will respond, and just keep that conversation going with them. So that's a kind of a high level version of my CRM. You can only hold so much information in your brain. And so one other thing that we do is our gifting program. I have a girl who ships out different gifts, and we've identified what we like. We buy in bulk these specific gifts that do have our logo on them, and they go out annually to our clients for 5 years. And then anytime someone does a loan multiple times with us, they get, hey, the first time they do a loan with us, they get this gift. The second time they get this gift, and it gets a little bit better every time. So we keep track in the CRM of what gifts we have given them, so we're not repeating gifts as well.
So give us an idea of two things. What are the gifts? And I might have something to say about this because I have some strong opinions. And how much do you spend? Like, because people, they're going to be like freaking out. Like, is she spending like $500 a client per year, or like what's the cost for these gifts?
Yeah, no, we actually end up ordering these in bulk. So I do a big spend in the beginning when I order each gift. And so at the beginning, it's something as simple as a t-shirt and a hat. We've ordered Turkish towels, which I really like. They're the towels that are really great to take to the beach or to the pool. We've ordered those bog bags, but we order them in bulk from China, ultimately. So it takes months for them to get to us sometimes, but we get them. We have our logo put on them. We've ordered the Stanley cups. We've ordered the like really nice soft blankets before, beach bags. Trying to think. We've ordered a lot of stuff. We've been doing this for quite a few years, and I get comments a lot of times. And actually, one other thing that is kind of an old school thing that I thought to get rid of, we give them a mail stamp, like just a stamp with their name and address on it. That's an auto stamper, and people call me a lot thanking me for the stamp. Of all the things that I think are cool, they love that the most. Pizza cutters. Coupons for pizza that go with the pizza cutters. On the very first time, we do send them a book, and I rotate the book out for which one I like the most. Right now, we're sending Think and Grow Rich out to clients, but I try to make it a finance-focused book that's also motivational, that may inspire them, something that's inspired me in the past.
So how much would you say you spend annually per client, and how many clients do you have in your database?
It's a great question. So I would say annually we're spending, I would say probably, so per client, gosh, it's probably less than $50 a client.
And how many clients do you have in your database?
And then the number of clients, I mean, we do anywhere between 200 and 300 loans per year. So there's probably, God, I don't know that number. I would guess 1,000 to 1,500 people that we're sending gifts out to. We do a check-in before we send the gift out, because a lot of times people have moved, or it's actually a really good excuse. About a month before we're going to send the gift out, we send a message to them and say, hey, just wanted to make sure this is the right address to send this to. And that opens up another another chance to do an annual loan review, as well as asking them, like, oh, great, where did you move to? Like, we didn't know you moved, right? So in that situation, so we'll either stop sending them at that point, or we'll change addresses where we're sending them to.
Okay, so I'm going to do some math for everybody because everybody needs the math.
Yes,
So,
yes.
how much do you make per loan?
Anywhere from, gosh, I would say, depending on the loan amount size, my average loan amount is 400,000. I would say I'm making anywhere from 3 to 7,000.
Okay, so $5,000 a loan, just to pick an average number, times 200 loans. Okay, so that's pretty easy math. So that's $1 million, and you spend, based upon the math that we just did, around $50,000 somewhere in that neighborhood on just these gifts that you send out. Now, some people look at the $50,000 headline number and they're like, Jesus, that's a ton of money. But is it really? Okay, is it really? Because what I want everybody to really think about here for a minute is this: what business do you know that doesn't reinvest in itself for marketing? So you could spend $50,000 on buying leads or on other types of marketing activities. But what I think that you're doing extremely well is you are buying the brain cells and owning the brain cells of the people that have experienced you before. You are building a loyal outside sales force, as we have identified, and you're allocating roughly 5% of your annual income to cementing long-term relationships that will yield and give to you in return. Now, for somebody that's listening that maybe does 30 loans a year or 40 loans a year, it's the same mathematical equation. You need to pick a certain percentage of your annualized income that you're going to earmark to putting back into investing, not spending, but investing in the growth of your business through the establishing and cementing of long-term relationships. So a couple of comments, ideas, thoughts. Okay. So I used to do a lot of, odd holiday greetings. So I didn't want to be on the mantle with the dentist and the gynecologist and whoever else on Christmas with my family Christmas card. To me, I'm going to be lost in the shuffle. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I used to do very effectively is use voice broadcasting for this purpose. So I record a message that doesn't have a salutation, of course, but I have a lot of energy and excitement. Hey, it's Tim Braheem with First Rate Financial. And I just wanted to wish you and your family a happy 4th of July weekend. If you're in town, I hope that you're doing something fun with friends, having a barbecue, etc. If you're out of town, I hope you're having a terrific vacation. Just wanted to let you know that I'm thinking about you. Be careful with the fireworks. Don't set anything on fire. If your house catches on fire, you can call me for a home improvement loan. Kidding, not kidding. Hope that you're doing well. And then I give them one at Thanksgiving, and then I give them one at New Year's. And I would use voice broadcasting, which is much less expensive and has much higher impact, in my opinion, than the card that everybody else gets. So that's just a suggestion. The other question that I have is relating back to your initial statements about your CRM. So you're talking about the inputting, right? Like we have notes, like you referenced that one lead that you got today and the fact that they don't want to buy for a while until they get married. And that's a very important note, right? So you don't forget about them. And, 9 months from now, when they do want to buy, they've thought about somebody else. How are you inputting that data? Is it typing it into the notes on the CRM? How's that information being put in?
Yeah. It's just very quick notes, typing it in. In that case, she emailed me. I copied and pasted her email, put it in the notes, and set a task. Sometimes I'll just forward it to Caleb and say, hey, please make sure this is in the CRM and that we're following up with her at the beginning of May.
Yeah, makes sense. Another idea, what I see a lot of originators starting to do is they use like a Plod or some other type of AI recording device, and they record their calls, or if they're maybe doing the consult on Zoom, they record the Zoom session, and then they ask the AI to distill it down into the keynotes, and then they're copying and pasting that into their CRM. So everybody has full vision on the important things that were discussed. So just wanted to share that as an additional footnote. Now, vision is, I know, a very important topic of yours, like having a vision, like really knowing where are we going here? And I'd like you to speak to that. Like, what's your beliefs around having a vision around your business so you can create a brighter future?
Yes, I want to speak to that, but I'm going to ask this question because if I was listening to this podcast, I'd probably have the same question.
Perfect.
I've heard you actually say this to use AI to record your calls. I do a lot of my calls on Zoom with people, but I also meet people. Sometimes it's just on my phone, which I'm assuming there's a way to record it on your phone. Do you actually ask the people if you can record the call?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah, you kind of have
listen.
to, right?
I don't because I don't do loans. But
Right.
the advice that I give as a coach to all of my clients is to get permission, and
Yes.
it's just a listen. It's a simple script. It's you want to give them reason for it so they don't feel like you're being creepy. So it's like, one
Right.
of the things that's important to me, Becky, is to be super present with you during our conversation. And back in the olden days, I used to feverishly try to scribble notes on things that my clients responded to because I wanted to capture certain things that I knew that were important to them. I find it to be much easier for me to be present if I can just simply record the conversation and have artificial intelligence assist me in distilling down the key points so my team and I can be super mindful of the things that are important to you. May I have your permission to record this call? And if you're in person with somebody and you're consulting with them face to face in your office, that's where you could use anything from Applaud to just taking your phone out and using the voice memo feature on your phone and hitting record, and letting it record the entire session, turning around and uploading that quickly into chat, saying distill the key points here, and then copy and paste those notes into your CRM. I think that you'll find, because most of the clients that I coach have found this, so I'm referencing their experience, that almost everybody's going to say, sure, no problem. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know why they wouldn't. You're giving them good justification as to why you want to record, because you want to be present with them so you can really hear them and understand what their needs are.
Right. That's great. Thank you for clarifying. It's funny, the answer's so simple, but sometimes this is why a coach is good, because you get so in your mode of doing things, the way you do things, to have someone outside your business step outside. In fact, I was listening to a little motivational thing this morning that's a side thing, but it was talking about two CEOs that they were on the brink of, like, hey, our company's not working. And they literally went on a walk and they said, hey, if we were to step down and let a different CEO take over right now, what would that CEO do differently? And I thought that was such great advice of saying, like, take that, if you can somehow either get a coach to have an outside perspective to help you, or just yourself, try to get yourself outside your business and take that outside of, like, this isn't working in my business, this, because there's always something that you're tweaking. To have that outside opinion, whether it's yourself, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's a coach, super valuable. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, let me just play off of that for a minute. I mean, like I've said this more times than I can count as well, that, a coach's job ultimately is to hold up the mirror so you can see what's happening in your business and in your life in ways that maybe you weren't able to see that when you were just so steeped in it. And that comes as a result of asking a lot of good open-ended questions, getting people to be curious with what it is that they're doing and why they're doing it and how they might be able to do it differently. This can be done in a one-on-one type of coaching environment with a skilled coach. It knows how to ask good questions and help reflect with you and strategize with you on new ways of doing things. I personally have two coaches and I use them both for the exact same purpose, one in business and one in life. And it can also be done in other types of formats. So like in my L360 program that I've been doing for 14 years, we do an 8-day business and life planning retreat in Costa Rica. And that's a perfect example of, like, getting everybody, that group of 12, we get them out of their life. We don't have a wide open schedule. We actually have a pretty packed, tight schedule by intent, because we don't want the outside world to have any room to come in and cause you to have to react. And in that container for those 7 days, you're really taking a deep diagnostic look at all aspects of your business and your life, and not only self-reflecting on maybe some of the things where you aren't feeling completely full or aren't feeling like you're completely meeting your own expectations, but also having the other 11 people and 3 coaches there to ask you the right questions. And it's really amazing. What happens is, over the course of those 8 days, people come back and they're literally different human beings, because they're now looking at their life differently. They're now looking at their business differently. And it's a result of retreating, right? I am a retreat junkie. I don't even know how many retreats I've attended in my life, but it's been a lot, like over 100 for sure. And the reason that I very consistently, periodically go outside of my world and retreat for 4 or 5 days is to get that elevation, right? Like the elevation above my life and my business, to look down on it and reflect on it. Because when you're in it, it's so hard to see things because you're just, like I said, you're so steeped in it. So thanks for bringing that up. I mean, I think that that's an important component. So back to the vision piece. I think that you're vision oriented, correct? I mean, it sure sounds like it. And I'd like you to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So it's funny. You say vision, like, not that my mind goes blank, but I feel like the way I would describe my vision is always like having a goal you're working toward, always having the thing that, I guess I'll speak to this in a way that my whole life I wanted to get married, I wanted to have kids, and I wanted to have a good career. And as a little child, you hear, I mean, you wanted the dream house, right? Like, I don't know why, for some reason, the dream house is like what everyone wants. And or just what is implanted. Maybe it's because that's the American dream. So at the age of 39, I got all of that. I had all my babies. I had a great marriage. I had the dream house, had all the dream things, and yet there was this like, hold on, I got it all. So what else? And it was a very empty feeling arriving at that place. It was surprisingly empty. And so it taught me that you can always, like, ultimately it's just, life to me is about creating and progressing. And you're always, there may not ever be a finish to your creation, but there will be to some things. Like, I got the house, I had the kids, I had all of this, but it's the progression of it, I guess I would say. I don't even know if I'm doing that great of a job explaining what I learned, but it was like, okay, what's cool about that is I was able to achieve all that at an early age. And now what else do I want to do? What fulfills me? What speaks to me? And so right now I'm stepping more into a leadership role. And that's my vision now of going, how can I help others grow a little bit more? How can I help my team grow? How can I try to remove myself a little bit more from the day-to-day and step into a more of a leadership, which is a growth for me? If I were just to stay doing the exact same thing I was doing all the time, I would feel stunted. And which is why I've expanded my team, which is why we've just evolved as things have gone on. So I would say my vision is more about the evolution of creating what is coming up for me. What the next fulfilling thing, because the thing that fulfilled me 10 years ago is not going to fulfill me now. And it's just being okay with that evolving of your soul and your mind. And anyway, did that answer any of those questions?
Yeah, for sure. So I'd love to comment on that a little bit. So I remember many years ago now when my partners and I built and sold Loom Toolbox, that my one partner, Rich, went into quite literal depression for about 120 days right after the sale. And the reason that he was so depressed was because he didn't understand why he didn't feel better. We had worked really hard. It was fun, hard work building this incredible company that helped and served so many people. And then we had our liquidity event where we got paid, and we all had a nice wire transfer of money into our bank accounts. And I remember him saying to me, I don't understand why I don't feel better. In fact, I feel worse. And I've examined that both in his circumstance and in the circumstance of several of my clients over the years, and in my own personal autobiographical experience. And what I've concluded is that, number one, is that outside material things are never going to make us truly happy. That true happiness comes from within. And there's a word that I'm a big fan of that doesn't get used enough, and the word is contentment. If we're consistently striving to prove ourselves to the outside world with achievements and material goods, etc., it's kind of like we're a hamster on the wheel and we don't know how to get off. And it can be quite exhausting. Now, there's another important word that you used, which is creativity. And I'm a huge fan of that word, because I do believe, as you said, and I emphatically agree with you, that we're all, as human beings, meant to create. That creation is a major virtue of life that gives it fulfillment. So sometimes when people create something, such as a business as an example, or even create an amazing home experience as a mother, as an example, or as a father, that's at stay at home with their kids, and then that ends. That's what that empty nest thing is. It's like, okay, but what now? There's nobody here. Like, I can't take pleasure in this beautiful, nurturing environment that I've created at home. That's when then people can feel very empty. Like, well, what do I do now? Like, who am I anymore? Right? Like, my identity is no longer here. Okay. And that's when it's incumbent upon us as human beings to look inward and ask ourselves, as you just beautifully articulated, the next question of, what else is it that I want to create? And you identified as, I want to be a better leader. I want to empower my people and take great joy in seeing them learn and grow. Yes, we have to constantly continue to remake ourselves and create a new vision once a chapter has ended, because most chapters don't last for our entire lifetime. I went through this. Without getting into too much depth, I've gone through many chapters in my life, and I'm sure that the current chapter that I'm in is going to, at some point in time, stay its course, and then it will be important for me to look inward and ask myself the question, like, what's next for me to give life meaning and to give it purpose, and what's the vision that I have for that? I don't know what that'll be yet. I don't need to worry about it now. I do know from going through it a few times that's very likely to occur. Okay, final question. So, and I like to ask this, I ask this to most guests on the show. If we could turn the clock back, sounds like it would be about 24 years ago, when you were 18 years old. Would that be accurate? 24 years ago?
Close, yeah.
Okay. Something like that?
Strangely bad at math in my head, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, 25 years ago.
Okay, if we could turn the clock back to your 18-year-old self, and you could sit in a chair face to face with the 18-year-old Becky Staples, and you could have a conversation with her right now. And the conversation was about you advising her on what she should be aware of going forward at this age of 18, going forward in her life. What advice would you give to yourself?
I've said a lot of times, I wish I could redo high school again, or redo something to that extent, because you're so insecure at that age of your life. You're so worried about what others think of you and how it's all going to work out. And you really are at this unknown stage of life. As you go through life and have more experience, I guess I would say to her, like, it's all going to work out, and better and more beautifully than you could ever imagine. You just have to continue stepping out in faith that things will work out, being willing to take risks, and continue to learn and grow. I think a lot of us worry too much, and even saying to myself now, worrying less, like it will all work out. And I love it, saying it better and more beautifully than you could have ever imagined. I'll share this last little tidbit. I do an exercise with my husband when we're going through a process that's hard. And a lot of times in that young stage of our lives, we're going through something that feels very unknown or hard, or we're not sure how it's going to work out. And we do a thing that we learned from Kyle Cease he calls it Kylegoing, but it's essentially manifesting in reverse. You go a year in advance or 3 months in advance or whatever it is, and you say, wasn't that cool how that problem worked out, and how this fell into place and this fell into place, and it was able to be that this person who was against that idea, this, let's say it's a business partner that didn't agree with you on a way you want to move forward, was able to come to an agreement with you and you were able to move forward. Wasn't that cool how that happened? And we're talking about a problem we have right now that we're not sure how that's going to work out. But because we're able to future cast and talk about it as if it already worked out, that's a tool that like I would want to teach my 18-year-old self about. Like, you can really create whatever you want in this life. You can really mess things up, or you can really go beyond what you think is possible. And that tool, that manifesting tool, has been life-changing for me, and use it every day. Use it all the time.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I'm really glad that I asked you that question. I guess the thought that I have is like, how many times have all of us had a circumstance happen that just seemed unbearable, unfair, terrible, and then 5 years later we look back on it and say, wow, that was quite a gift. And what you're describing, it sounds like, is putting yourself into that position 5 years in the future or a year into the future or whatever, and asking yourself the question, or creating the narrative around how this event that I'm currently experiencing is actually something that's going to be of benefit to me a year from now, and seeking for those positive points of view. So that's very beautiful. Thank you so much for generously teaching. Congratulations on your success. It's really a pleasure to get to know you. And I really, really appreciate the time that we spent together today.
Thank you. I feel the same.
And to all of you who tuned in, thank you very much for listening. We look forward to having another episode of the 360 Experience in a couple of weeks. I wish all of you well in the upcoming spring real estate season. Hopefully it's fruitful to all of you. And I hope you have a beautiful week. Thank you.